Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. We are discussing the films of 1967. I'm Michael, and Jacob's on the other side.
Hello, everybody. Everybody staying groovy today? I know I am.
I did say that we were going to complete the 60s. Actually, I think originally I said we're going to do 60s, like 1964 or 3 or whatever, up through the 70s, but I'm burnt out because I didn't realize. I don't know if it's just movies didn't hold up as well because I watch all of the movies, I think, basically from the year. I have to filter through all of it to see what's worth discussing. And then I send the list to Jacob, and I gotta tell you, I've watched so many fucking war movies and so many fucking westerns, and really, maybe 5% is not associated with those. It just seems like there's not a lot of comedies or anything. There's no animation really back then, except, like every 5 years there was a Disney movie. Hardly any sci-fi, no horror really yet. It hasn't really hit its boom till like the mid 70s. So it's been a struggle. So we're going to pause for a while after this and go to 1997. I figured fast forward 30 years. Just like in Austin Powers.
Yes, we're all just cryogenically frozen.
Yeah, which will probably be the first movie we discuss. All right, so of 1967, what is the first thing we're discussing?
Okay, the first one I wanted to discuss was something I hadn't seen before, but I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm surprised I didn't hear of it when I was in my theater days in high school. How to succeed in business without even trying.
It's a lot of these musicals, they have their ebbs and flows and they have to do their revivals. I just shared news with you that they're doing a big revival of Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway right now with Evan and Rachel Wood, and they just announced that they're going to do, I don't know if it's a sequel or a remake or what it is, but it's Little Shop of Halloween Horrors, and Joe Dante's finally making his first film in a decade. I feel like a lot of musicals kind of have this, they burn themselves out, they come back like 10, 15 years later. So that's what this is. How to succeed in business without really trying. Was really popular for about 10 years, from 64, 62, whatever, to the mid 70s, and then it kind of faded away. I think it was in 89 or 90. I could be wrong. It was Matthew Broderick revived it on Broadway, so it had its big boom for a while then, and it just now started to have another revival. So these things do come and go.
Right. Again, just the premise of this itself, this one in particular, this musical was, oh my god, it is almost surreal because like some people didn't even have to have experience. It's just about who they know to get somewhere at this particular company.
Yeah, it's a real book. Somebody wrote this in 1961 and published it, and someone thought it'd be hilarious to turn into a musical.
And then, of course, the footprints of that book was what catapulted the main character, Finch, what catapulted him to success at this company.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
so what it is, in order to adapt the book, they did it in a unique way, is that the star, the main character Finch, decides that he no longer wants to be a window washer. He finds this book and he follows all of these patterns in order to succeed. And a lot of it is butt smooth, ass kissing, whatever, brown nosing, being at the right place at the right time, molding situations the way he wants it to be, so that he gets to be, like in that very particular timing, his fucking nonsense with pretending that he worked all night long with cigarettes everywhere and the coffee cups and then falling asleep at the desk just as the manager was coming in. Genius.
Right. And look what happened. It's like, he's been working so hard, needs to take time off, and when he comes back, he gets a promotion. And then, of course, over the president's own nephew, too, who's just like pretty much starting out in the mailroom.
Oh, what? Now, he is an extreme ass kisser, but he's unlikable. No one cares for his whiny ass.
Exactly. And not to mention that he's only there because of his uncle.
Yeah.
And his mom calling to his uncle
right,
constantly.
Yes, right. So this was originally offered to Dick Van Dyke, but he felt like he was too old for the role, so it went back to the guy who did it on Broadway, Robert Morse. Not a lot of people know who Robert Morse is because he really never had any theatrical success. I didn't know that this wasn't a big hit. To me, on paper, this looks like it would have been huge. No, it didn't make its money back. I think he's very charming and very unique. I don't see a lot of actors that have his approach or his look.
No, not at all. And again, he did just have a lot of charisma, and as you said, he was just very charming, and it clearly showed. I mean, especially knowing the fact that he was a theater actor.
I think I lost you, bub.
Oh no, I'm here.
Okay. So the musical numbers are really fun. They're done by Bob Fosse. It's one of his first movies, and he kind of changes the dancing style that was around back then. I think West Side Story was the first one to really like kick in a new modern style. But it's definitely here's where it's very unique into stuff you've never seen before on film. And it's shot ultra wide. If you love this era and its bursting colors and super wide set, the shooting, whatever, it is absolutely gorgeous.
No, absolutely yes. Even from when the secretaries are all like getting themselves ready, making themselves presentable with their eyelashes, and of course, I love how it can go over the top. It's in the 60s in a musical. Yeah, it's allowed.
I was wrong. It was 95 when Matthew Broderick revived it, and in 2011, I don't know how I didn't know about this, it was revived with Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, damn!
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. I wonder if sometimes they release that stuff on TV or like, on IMAX. I wonder if I can see that, because that would be really interesting, because it's Daniel Radcliffe and then John Larroquette as the boss. And then the 95 version, that's how Megan Mullally probably got known, was because she plays Rosemary in that.
Yeah, oh gosh. That would make a lot of sense. I mean, because if I remember, Megan Mullally was more of a Broadway player.
Yeah, and then of course, like 2 years later, oh my god, what the fuck? Ralph Macchio played the national tour after Matthew Broderick took over. So they had the Broadway version with Matthew, and then Ralph would do the version where it toured all over the nation. That's wild.
Oh, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a big, fun comedy. I prefer comedies that are humorous. When they're dour and like depressing or whatever, it's harder for me to get into them. This one's a lot of fun. It's just a goofy, fun blast, and everybody looks like they're having the time of their life.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, my God. That whole Secretaries Aren't Toys musical number, the way they were like...
That was a good one,
like,
yeah.
I can never, again, yeah, as you said, like the unique dancing, like on screen and stuff like that.
It's
really differentiate itself.
It could have. No, there is a little bit of that era kind of behavior, the way that they treated women. Like they were always secretaries, and better to have their ass slapped or whatever. Like that's how men treated a lot of women back then. But I think this movie also kind of circumvents. It seems a little bit ahead of the step in that the women seem to be like, yeah, you're going to tempt that ship, and I'm not going to let it slide.
Right. Yes. Oh, and oh my gosh, who was the president's protege? I recognized her voice. I was like, wait a minute, that's Betty Boop.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm very sure.
Okay.
I recognize a high pitch anywhere.
She was around in a lot of movies back then. Let me try to see who that is. I can't remember. I looked her up and I was like, yep, saw that movie. I don't know. Betty Boop's from like the 1930s. She would have been, no, maybe she did a revival of it. Her name's Maureen Arthur. Let's see where she started. I feel like I've seen so many of these movies. Okay, soundtrack. I wonder if she's in a bunch of musicals.
I'm pretty sure she was in Christmas Vacation.
Is she in Christmas Vacation? That might be a different person because that was only 30 years later, or 20 years later. She's in The Love Machine with Don Knotts, which is fucking hilarious. How to Commit Marriage, I think that's with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. The Love God. No, Love God is the one with Don Knotts. This, Don't Meet the Daisies, and just a bunch of television. Let's see. No, the first thing she did was in 1958. I think I know who you're talking about, though, from... what do I think? Oh, you just said Christmas Vacation. I have to look her up. But yeah, she would have been much older than this lady.
Oh, okay. Dang. Well, I was wrong. She sounds like Betty Boop.
Well, there was an era where, because of Marilyn Monroe, a lot of actresses were now doing the kind of like, putting their boobs out there, high pitch, kind of boo-boo-bee-doo-boo, kind of attitude. So I think she was just kind of doing an homage to that.
Okay. Makes all the more sense.
Yeah. All right.
What's
that?
I said I was so wrong.
What is our second film?
Okay, the second one is Bonnie and Clyde. This is something I'd seen snippets of
Yeah, same here.
when I was a kid, but in film study, that's when I fully watched it. And of course, growing up watching the Dick Tracy, I did enjoy Warren Beatty. I recognized them immediately.
There is another version of this from the viewpoint of the people hunting Bonnie and Clyde. It's on Netflix. It's from John Hancock, starring Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner. Called I want to say it's The Highwaymen. I think it's what it's called. So it's about them hunting them down, and it's not so much from Bonnie and Clyde's perspective, but it's a different angle if you're interested in it. I think maybe the hype on this was so much that when I finally saw it, it was a little bit of a letdown, but I understand where they're coming from. The performances and the direction style were kind of making you aware that film needed to change. I mean, this is right as the revolution's about to happen, where studio movies are crumbling unless they were kind of newer in their style and thinking, like Midnight Cowboy and this, The French Connection, stuff like that. And it was necessary to kind of clean the slate and get these new voices of actors and directors. There's more, what do you call it? I hate when I forget something that's a really common phrase. Marlon Brando is the one that did it all the time. Stanislavski.
Method acting.
Method acting. Jeez, I can't believe I forgot that. This feels like everybody in it is that style. And they're doing, for the most part, doing stuff I didn't expect them. The way that Warren Beatty carries himself in this is a lot different than I expected. I almost wondered if he had fake teeth, the way that he uses his mouth in such a strange way when he talks. Gene Hackman, Michael J. Pollard, they're giving very unique, weird accents that I could not place, like Oklahoma maybe. But it's insanely violent for this time period. I did not expect that.
Oh, absolutely, yes, because as you're saying, cinema is dying. Like, it has to, switch things up.
Yeah. A lot of it is focused on just, these bored people in the Depression who either had a choice of losing everything or fighting for something. I don't really disagree with what they were doing, because the system fucked them over and was taking everybody's homes and making them starve to death. And that stuff, though, can get completely out of hand. And they just end up starting killing people, and that's when things hit the fan and you can't really root for them anymore.
Yeah, because I think that as they were making their getaway, as we can see from their point of view, incidentally, they ended up killing a guard.
Yeah, and there's a movie like this. If you like Bonnie and Clyde, it's kind of like an homage remake of it. It's with Emilio Estevez and Demi Moore. It's called Wisdom, and it's about the economy collapsing and people who have just done a little bit of time or whatever it is, they fall in hard times. They can't make it no matter what he does, and they go on the run. They go into banks and they burn the bank notices so that people can have their homes back. But it also it goes wrong, so it's very much a remake of this.
Oh, absolutely, shot for shot.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Wisdom?
I remember seeing it when I was a lot younger. I couldn't remember what it was called.
It's a little harder to find now, but you can get it on DVD. I have it.
Nice!
But yeah, this is a really good... It kickstarted the whole mobster 1920s revival, too. I don't know if Godfather would have been picked up. I mean, it was a very highly selling book, so the chances are pretty good, but if they hadn't seen that Bonnie and Clyde had won, awards and so much acclaim and money, that someone would have greenlit. And there's hundreds of these mobster movies during the 70s and early 80s. I think my favorite of the bunch is Dillinger. John Milius and Warren Oates starred, and it's really, really good.
Oh, yeah. John Dillinger?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much in vein with this. The two movies could go together perfectly.
Oh, yeah. The next thing you know, they have an Avengers level of mobsters.
That would be crazy.
Bank robbers.
Oh, man. Anything else you want to say about this movie?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, for me, it's a classic. Growing up watching it again. Great performances all around. Of course, I reckon.
Go ahead.
Of course, growing up with Superman, I recognized Gene Hackman immediately.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is kind of ground zero for everybody. Warren Beatty had been in a few studio films. He was signed to a contract. He was one of those guys they were developing. But it's it kicked the door open for him, and definitely for Gene Hackman. He doesn't get French Connection in just a couple years without this movie, and Faye Dunaway becomes an A-lister like instantly.
Oh yeah, no, dude, this movie. I mean, this movie did a lot for their career.
All right, what is the next film on our list?
Next film was, oh god, this was a good one though. Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, all-time fucking classic. I mean, when people talk about this, just like Bonnie and Clyde, this kind of changed things. Same like with Fistful of Dollars, that not everything in war was clean and noble. There was some fucking, like, I mean, dirty stuff that they had to do, and it was more of a cynical take on war, maybe a little bit of a nod to what was starting up in Vietnam, that they got these guys who aren't like the all-American, rah-rah John Wayne kind of hero. They got some great fucking character actors to come in and play bad guys, man. I mean, even the lower-level bad guy like Charles Bronson is still a bad guy, but just not a terrible human being.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God, Maggot in particular was the worst of them.
Oh, that's Telly Savalas' character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a who's who of, you know, guys that were kind of rising up. It's really strange that Clint Walker was in this, and he wasn't one of the main guys. He's the one that's really, really big. He could have played Superman. He had been in a very popular TV show. He had starred in a few studio movies before this. So it's surprising that he's playing like Six Banana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Loaded to the gills with that guy. So we got Lee Marvin coming off of Cat Ballou. They have now realized he is a star. And this is a fucking great vehicle for him. I did remember that Charles Bronson was so... I knew he survived, but I didn't realize that he was so prominent. He is the second lead.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it wasn't any more evident.
Yeah, it's...
I mean...
This is him being a star now, and especially in Europe, they go fucking crazy for him.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, oh, God, that bathroom scene in particular.
Yeah.
Where he gets, like, jumped and then, you know, still doesn't cave in to what they want out of him. Really keeps himself grounded and does not take shit from anybody.
John Cassavetes walks away with the movie, though. I mean, he's just so fucking amazing and just constantly anti-authoritarian, getting in their way no matter what, and starting this revolution, like, we're not going to shave, we're not going to shower.
Pretty much, yeah, not with cold water.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that he could have had any movie he wanted after this. But he was an artist. He was a director. He would do studio movies from time to time just so he could get the money to do his little independent movies with his wife and his best friends Ben Gazzara and Peter Falk. Like, you know, he would do The Fury and a couple other like sci-fi and horror movies just for a big paycheck so he could afford the independent movies. I fucking commend that.
Oh, absolutely. No, and...
Go ahead.
Oh, God, who else do we have? Oh, we had linebacker, former Brown linebacker, Jim Brown.
Yep, and he becomes a star after this, too. They start giving him tons of movies.
Oh, yeah, I know. He plays it off so well.
And Ernest Borgnine.
Yes, Ernest Borgnine, of course, as like a general commander, you know, has some history with Lee Marvin's character. I mean, he understands, like, the technicalities and whatnot, and he doesn't really blame him for, like, some of his past stuff, but he still pulls through for him in the end.
Yeah.
Especially during the little scenario where they take out Reed's base.
Oh right, yes.
Oh God, it's like he knew what was going on. He's like he was in on it. He didn't say shit.
Speaking of Reed, so it's played by Robert Ryan. He's just one of those tough guys from that era. He usually played like third banana. He was in The Professionals we discussed in the last episode, but he has a scene in this. Very early on, where they're trying to talk, he's like, "I want to talk to the general. Let's well, they're undercover, sir. They can't reveal who they are." It's like, "Oh, that's bullshit. Let me see them, whatever." And since he's already seen Richard Jekyll, who plays the MP, and Lee Marvin, he has to pick somebody. And I can't believe of the people he chose Donald Sutherland, who's the baby of the group, who I think is the only surviving member of this cast, by the way. And in such a star-making, fucking great little role. And right, the minute you see Donald Sutherland, you're like, oh yeah, he's a star right there. That's such a fun performance.
Absolutely, man. Oh gosh, and he was like, I think, well, no. Olds. Oh yeah, he was definitely one of the ones that he was like one of the first ones to go.
Which is
Like,
a
oh.
shock. I know. I was shocked that they took him out so early.
Right, I know, and he was their cover guy, their getaway, and he spoke German, he infiltrated, made sure they got away.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it's funny, as you watch the movie, spoilers, people, we spoiled already with Donald Sutherland, but this is, like Magnificent Seven, hardly anybody gets out alive. It is a true shock. Especially when you get to almost the end of the battle and there's still like 6 people. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. You're like, oh, well, fuck. Jim Brown's gone. Those 2 guys in the boat's gone. John Cassavetes is gone. It's brutal. It doesn't let it go by easy. So it really is like a kick in the balls to the whole genre that it needed.
absolutely. But man, did it suck to see Jim Brown die out. All because of that little delay. And honestly, if you were to point at it, honestly, as to where really what started going south, like, Maggot had to go freaking batshit nuts.
Yeah, ruined everything by forcing them to have to kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fucking.
Oh, that's what sucked.
Telly Savalas is so nasty. Maggot is like the perfect. That can't really be his last name, by the way. There's just no way. That's be a nickname. No one.
I know. Yeah. No, that was his nickname. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So this movie was it was huge in America, but it was also a phenomenon in Italy, but most of Europe. And spaghetti westerns were a phenomenon at the time, but no one ever talks about what is nicknamed macaroni combat. And there's maybe about 15, 20 Italian war movies at this time, and some of them are gold, and they usually have this kind of motif. A bunch of kind of rebellious, tough guys who are outside the system, and it's brutal. And, of course, I think most people know Inglourious Bastards was kind of the end of that genre. Not the one that Tarantino directed. The original one from 1978 with Fred Williamson. And it's a really fun genre that they go back and revisit. I think Fury and, of course, the remake of Inglourious Bastards kind of like go to the darker side of World War II.
Oh, yeah, no, hands down. Yeah, they show you the real gritty of, like, what, and to view these, soldiers, because, they've been put on this pedestal. It's like, dude, these are people, too.
Yeah.
They'll do some terrible shit.
I think it's also interesting in this movie, they still haven't developed squibs, which I thought by this time was a thing, because, look at Bonnie and Clyde. They had, like, 50 squibs all over their body, but I don't recall anybody actually getting shot, and they show them getting shot, which sometimes to me is an editing, like, weird thing to do. Whereas someone shoots and all of a sudden you see someone just clenching their stomach and falling to the ground instead of seeing the actual explosion.
Yeah, like the actual pop. Like, I don't see any cherry tomatoes popping out of those jackets, man.
Yeah. There are 3 sequels to this and a TV show. Most people don't know that because in 1985, this is why I think it's completely absurd. 1985, they do the second mission, I think, or the Deadly Mission or something like that. Where I can't think all of a sudden. Oh my God, Lee Marvin comes back, and it's supposed to be like literally like a few months later, but he's aged 18 years. It's right before he died, and we're supposed to believe it's just a few months later, and it's fucking stupid. They should have just cast someone else putting a group together, and it's pretty good. And there's 2 more sequels. But this time, this is even crazier, guys. Telly Savalas is now the leader, but he's not playing Maggot. He's not playing the guy related to Maggot. He's just in it again, and I'm like, what the fuck?
that is quite. That does kind of throw you off. Kind of like what they did with Lee Van Cleef for a few dollars more, and then Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Or with the Magnificent Seven sequels, where Chris was, I
he was played by George Kennedy.
It was George Kennedy in the 3rd one, and Lee Van Cleef in the 4th one. The first one was Yul Brynner. Thank you. Good Lord. And then there was a TV show for like 13 episodes on Fox with a whole different cast. But I was just like, are you really expecting us to think that this takes place? Why don't you have it set in Vietnam if you're going to have it 18 years later or something? You know what I mean? Or Korean War.
At least some, a different conflict.
Yeah, Dirty Dozen poster, by the way, is one of the best posters I've ever seen. You got to look at it. It's the original. I want this on my wall.
I don't blame you, dude. Even after looking it up. Honestly, and one more thing I do want to mention about this.
Yeah.
This was definitely like the blueprint for DC Comics' Suicide Squad.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. I was even thinking that during the making of this. It is, they said it's Dirty Dozen in the superhero universe. Also, I'm not sure if that castle was already there or they built the castle. They blow the fuck out of all of this. I don't know how they could afford to make a real castle. I feel like they must have shot interiors at a real castle, but then on the outside, it had to be like fake because they're just blowing the shit out of everything.
Oh God, yes, explosions galore. I know this was definitely set a standard when it came to action movies like this.
Yeah, and this seems like kind of the end of the Super Macho movie too. It's like starts with Magnificent Seven and kind of rides out until this. And our next film, sorry, I'm going to step on your toes a little bit. Cool Hand Luke.
Oh yeah. Oh God. Another again also has George Kennedy as well.
Yeah, who got the Oscar nomination for it, and that kind of he never really was a star, but he got better projects after this.
Oh yeah, hands down. And considering like how much of a supporting role he was for Paul Newman, yeah, you could see why.
It's another a huge hit, another like dude's movie. And it's so interesting that the hell that he goes through in this movie just because he was drunk. And I don't know what kind of tool that is, but he just decides in a drunken, stupidity, whatever, funny as hell to not like he goes around in circles cutting off the
the meter mate.
Yeah, the meters, and he goes to jail, understandably. But then he's like fucking tortured on this chain gang, which something that should have been like a 3-month sentence at most, and maybe a fine. And it turns into this fucking endurance contest between the brutal people running the prison, and he just won't break. He just refuses.
Absolutely, yeah. He pretty much was the king of cool. If Steve McQueen, if Steve McQueen was in that role, honestly, he would have been perfect for it as well. But again, Paul Newman, top notch, from like every moment, even when it came to like gathering the critters that warden shot.
Yeah.
The one with the sunglasses. Oh yeah, like he was just playing off cool, like still being a little bit of a smart ass. But oh man, when he visits his mom, that's when you see his vulnerability.
Yeah, well, it's when he sees her and then she's dying, that kind of sets off everything. That he's not going to wait. He needs to see his mother before she dies, and that sets up like this just escape, keep getting caught, escape, getting caught, beaten, thrown into isolation, just absolutely fucking tortured. And even when you think that he is finally broken, he fucking pulls a switcheroo. That's weird. The power just went out in the house.
Oh, dang.
Oh, it was a windstorm. He pulls a switcheroo on everybody and he just escapes again. It's fucking genius.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, from all those distractions like during the 4th of July or, bringing himself out of chains with a pickaxe, using those two little kids that get something from the shop to help him out with it. And even with that little distraction for the dogs, putting spices in their area just so it fuck up their sense.
Yeah, the line in this that's famous is what we've got here is a failure to communicate. A lot of my generation hadn't seen this movie, but we knew it as the beginning of Civil War by Guns N' Roses. Have you ever heard that song? It's not a deep cut, but it was also a hit. It's just one of those, like, if you were crazy about Guns N' Roses, 35 fucking years ago, you knew that intro. I always thought it was a woman saying it, by the way. I didn't realize it was a man. Oh,
yeah, depending on the... yeah, considering how high-pitched the warden's voice was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It would throw you off.
Here is... Oh, actually, George Kennedy did win the Academy Award. I'm shocked. Here's the interesting thing is that this was produced by Jack Lemmon. Originally, it was going to be a starring performance for him until he realized he just wasn't right for the role. And yeah, I can see the King of Cool getting it over Paul Newman. But also, for some reason, Telly Savalas was offered this, and I'm fucking confounded by it.
Wow.
Yeah,
and we had just mentioned him.
Yeah, he wasn't even a star at this point. I mean, he never really got to star in any movies. Most people know him as either a villain or a a B, C level character in exploitation films. But, Kojak was his thing, is that TV show. Who loves ya, baby?
Oh, man. Yeah. No, because he always looked like he was more of a supporting role than anything. Because I mean, from all the old movies I've watched, and I haven't seen him in much else.
Yeah, and this, like Bonnie and Clyde, like Dirty Dozen, this is a wake-up call for filmmaking, is that, it's more anti-authoritarian, the darker side of, what we had seen in Hollywood. It was just like, you needed to shake some stuff loose. And that's what this next, 12, 13 years is anti-authoritarian, kind of against the system. Star Wars kind of changes things in 77, but it takes a little while for that to happen.
Yeah, this very heavy sense of surrealism does take over cinema, considering what had gone on and what they were enduring.
And more character-driven, more director-style-driven, instead of just generic fill-in-the-blank studio stuff, which is, I feel like, is about to happen again. I feel like this era of Hollywood right now is repeating what we had in the 60s. Throwing $250 million and trying to force a franchise is exhausting, and people are kind of tired of it. I feel like the mid-budget, character-driven, where it's focused around really good actors and not special effects, is going to take over again.
Oh, especially when they run the visual effects department to the grind them to the. What's the phrase? Grind them to dust or
yeah. Oh, and they're going to start using AI, but you can't. AI will never reflect a true human performance that something like Paul Newman gives here. And no computers can do it. Yeah, it's just amazing. I love Paul Newman. He's going
Absolutely.
into his era that's coming up is maybe his best. I'm a big fan of a movie set in Oregon, right by where I live, called Sometimes a Great Notion, about the logging industry dying in the early 70s. I hope I can find that so you can see it when we get to that year.
Oh, absolutely. And AI can only replicate. It can never create.
Right. What is our final film of this episode?
Okay. Now, this one I had not seen before, but I overall did enjoy when I watched it. Quite a few people I recognized. Who's Minding the Mint?
Most people have never heard of this movie. I found this by accident. I was at the library and they had some VHS tapes. This is like 17 years ago or so. And I was like, well, what's this movie? And Mom looked at it and she was like, okay, those are some pretty good actors. And I was like, okay, I'll watch this. And I was like, this is one of the funniest fucking movies I've ever seen. I absolutely adore this movie. I know it's not everybody's.
Absolutely.
It's one of these. Okay, so the actual driving point of the movie is stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Look, if he had shredded, he works at the Mint, and he has to keep track of all the money that comes in, and whatever. And he accidentally gets it switched with this bag of fudge given to him by the girl that likes him, and he takes it home, and he's like, I don't want to hear this fudge. I'm sick of this fudge. He even tries to give it away, and he throws it into the shredder instead of the trash. Why the fuck would you do that? Just throw the fudge in the trash. What are you thinking? But then sees after it gets all grimed up and making horrible sounds that he has shredded the money. That's what you do. You clean out your disposal, you take all that money in a bag and explain what happened. You do not do what comes next, which is the most escalating, nonsensical, horrifying idea. It's as if a bunch of doofuses decide to pull out Ocean's 11, but on a more difficult, holy shit level.
Yeah, I know. This is a small scale of a mad world.
Yes, and it's kind of the end of those too, where you get like this big, massive cast of like well-known but not super famous people together to just shenanigans.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, with Jim Hutton's boss, played by David J. Stewart, Samson Link was the character's name.
Yeah.
Good God, it's like, considering how he's so on your ass about everything, and he's trying everything he can to set him up and to try and get rid of him.
Right.
He's thinking he's stealing.
Oh, this is all because he's poor, and he decides he found an angle that he could rent furniture from companies for 30 days to see if he wants to keep it. He's doing all sorts of these trials. He even does it with a limo driver. He's always working these angles and trying to get free stuff for a while, and then he'll just give them back because he can't afford He can't afford a car. He can't afford a furnished apartment. He can barely afford his apartment, and he has all this stuff going on. So his boss is like, where do you get all this money? Never lets him actually explain it, and threatens to put him in jail and have him fired.
Exactly. That's typical supervisor managerial behavior.
Yeah. And so 50,000 gets lost, and so he has to go into the mint to reprint it. He's got his dad's help. But then finds out you need this, you need the plates, you need a cutter, you need to get in there. How are you going to get in there with a boat? How are you going to navigate through the pipes? So he goes from just him and his dad to like 12 people, and they're all crazy. And
absolutely.
What I love about this is the fact that they throw in that the day they have planned has to go in the trash because they're changing out the machines 3 days before they plan on breaking into the mint. And of course, everybody wants their cut. So it goes from $50,000 to everybody wants $50,000 to everybody wants $100,000 to fuck it, everybody wants $1 million. And, well, except for the girl, Verna, his love interest, she has no idea what's going on. She's just trying to keep him out of jail. By the way, Jim Hutton, if you didn't know, is Timothy Hutton's dad, who died very young of liver cancer. Which is really sad because I think he's very likable in this.
Absolutely.
So we have Milton Berle basically being the asshole of the group, the greedy, the Daffy Duck of this group. Fucking hilarious. And then there's Victor Buono as a crazed pirate, or not, a crazed captain who won't stop talking as if he is in like some sort of Horatio Hornblower kind of master and commander. He just won't act like a normal human being, and all he does is run the boats at some kid's amusement park. We have Bob Denver as the ice cream man. We have Joey Bishop as like the Italian guy with the pipes. Oh, and Jamie Farr from MASH as his non-English speaking cousin.
Mario.
Yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting a couple of people. Oh, and Jack Gilford, who's enjoyable as hell as the safecracker. That's the other person they needed, someone to break in to get the plates. Who has to have a hearing aid, who causes all sorts of communication problems because he doesn't have the proper hearing aid.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
it's just when they're trying to first break into the safe.
The fact that they're moving the machines early causes them to call them immediately. We gotta go. Well, half of them are dressed up for other things. So you have Milton Berle as like George Washington. You have Victor Buono still in his captain outfit. Joey Bishop's in his Boy Scout outfit. And Verna is in her ballerina outfit because she's taking classes. And so it sets up a lot of goofy things, like trying to get under the laser, but, well, her boobs cause an issue, but also her tutu causes an issue. There's a whole thing with the wax museum in the building, right? And Milton Berle's dressed as George Washington, so he has to pretend. And the dog. The fucking most adorable dog.
Exactly. It's a female dog, and she's ready to have puppies anytime soon. So she's walking around, and Milton Berle and a couple others are like out looking for the dog, so nothing, just so the security guards don't catch him. Yeah. Oh, and it reminds me of like the stage plays that we love, like Noises Off, with how things are moving, the patterns. It's that kind of wacky shenanigans, like screwball comedy. If you love that kind of stuff, I couldn't stop giggling at the setups. Because you'd have the dog walk across, then Milton Berle walk across, the security guard across, the doggo again, the security guard, Milton Berle, but they're all in different rooms in different aisles, and it just fucking killed me. Oh god, I know, seriously, it was like watching a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, and the sliding around and stuff like that, the scooting the dog back and no one's seeing it. It's pure brilliance of visual jokes, and I don't know, I had so much fun, and of course there's the car chase and getting out of there, and the ink in his eyes, and all these setups are so brilliantly put together.
And in the end, what happens to all the money?
Yeah. Oh, the whole stupid truck. If it hadn't had that weird malfunction where it started blasting the speakers, things would have turned out differently for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And if Mario, spoke English and recognized that realized that those men were garbage collectors and not police.
The police, yeah. Oh my god! But it's not over. And if did you watch through the credits?
Oh gosh, I think as they were like scuba diving in.
So the adventure isn't over yet. I love the roll call of all of them in scuba gear, even the puppy, underwater looking for the money that found its way out onto a trash. Is that what they do back then? Or they do that now? Do they just dump trash in the ocean? There's no way they still do that.
No, I think they just carried it in a barge to someplace where they could dispose of it.
Okay, because I can't imagine. I mean, like, the 60s are different than it has been, now, because I feel like all of the Bay of New York is trash. It's just layered with trash.
Oh, good God.
And needles and whatever. So that is the end of this episode. What was your favorite of the bunch?
Oof, gosh. That is a bit tough. I would have to either say Dirty Dozen or Who's Minding the Mint.
Yeah, I love watching the guys build their relationship, their anti-authoritarian relationship as they go through. So when you finally get to Germany and the castle, and then it goes just so fucking like Rip Snorton juggernaut of an action picture. I love that journey, but it's hard for me to deny the power of the wacky setups in Who's Minding the Mint.
Oh, God, yes, I know. Seriously. Again, it's so cartoonish, so Looney Tunes, just absolute bonkers.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and I wish more people discovered that. Even knew that it existed. But some of these movies they fade away, and that's kind of the point of the show, is going back into the archive. Even if you're talking like 10, 15 years ago, there's movies that people miss that are great. That's kind of the point of our show. We talk about the big stuff, but also like, hey, this hidden gem in here. Who knows about Great Race? Under 50. Hardly anybody under 50 probably knows what the hell that even is or how influential it was.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Unless you were like, a film buff yourself looking up this stuff independently.
Yeah.
But again, not as much. Or if you're taking something like Film Study.
Yeah, I find it crazy that Blake Edwards did The Great Race, the most expensive comedy of all time, at that time. And then went into Wait Until Dark, which is completely polar opposite, smart, small, independent little thriller. No funny stuff really at all. How do you do that? Like, directors don't really pull that off anymore. Maybe Spielberg could do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Spielberg, oh gosh, who else was able to do that?
But who really bounces genres like that? I just can't think of anybody. Maybe, Paul Feig, going from the Ghostbusters 2016 to A Simple Favor, which is kind of a dark comedy thriller. Really small, self-contained. That might be the only example I can think of right now.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, what's that?
Didn't he also do the Ant-Man movies?
No, you're thinking of somebody else. That's Peyton Reed.
Okay.
All right, everybody, that is the end of this episode. Jacob, send us out.
All right, everybody. Namaste and good luck. Be excellent to each other.
And party on and stay groovy, baby.